Hi, Team OTI. Is that what you're called now?
Yes.
Hi, Stacy.
Yes. Hello.
Genesis, Noelia. Just before we get started, we have an agenda item as you might have seen before you. So I'm going to give you the option to, stay on, or if you want to come back and check in around 7:45, 8. I leave it completely up to you guys.
Yeah, you think you'll be done by 7:45 with the agenda item? Can you hear me? Hello?
Wait,
I
sorry,
hear you.
Genesis, did you say something and I'm having an audio problem?
You are having an audio problem.
Okay.
Oh,
My name is Jim. I'm a member of the committee. Hello, everyone.
hi, Jim.
I normally have a ponytail, but you can't do it with one hand. So
Sorry, this happened last month as well. Give me a moment.
I love all this modern technology. I taught computer science, but I've always been very dubious. Now, you know why I call the cloud? They call the cloud, not really, because it's not always there.
Well, I'm happy technology's allowed me to finally participate in the meeting.
Oh, you got your new tablet and they have a cellular connection on it. How very good.
I'm actually doing this meeting on my phone. For some reason, it worked. I was an attendee and I got uplifted to panelist.
Oh, well, congratulations. Nice hearing you, Jay.
Yeah, I'm pleased with my promotion as well.
Well, next we're going to make you king and then you have to worry about everything.
can people hear me now?
Yes.
Mhm.
And can you hear us?
I can.
This is good.
Yeah, this is the second time this has happened. Okay, let me just see where we are in terms of panelists.
Hello, Mary. I broke my clavicle
When?
Oh, no.
a week ago Saturday and a rib. Clavicle doesn't hurt, but it may be a mess, but the rib was another story.
Oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that.
God.
Yeah, I was very sorry it didn't have it occur to, yeah, also, yeah. By the bus terminal, the curb is very high and I actually probably didn't lift my foot high enough. Boom, there I was on my shoulder.
All right.
Wow. Good luck.
Thank you. I'm seeing the orthopedist on Wednesday. And fortunately, I broke my hand when I was 14, so I'm really good at doing things with one hand. I mean, I broke my arm, so I've had practice.
Well, you know, I'm a permanent member of the orthopedic department over there, so.
Oh, one of the people I spoke to was Rita Hamburg, who gave me some of her thoughts. Neighbors.
Oh,
She's
yeah.
great.
All right. I think we've got a quorum. I'm going to give it like 30, like 30 seconds just to see if Leo Jimenez, there he is. The system is working. Okay, 1 second. All right. So it's 7:07. Thanks, Chanel. My name is Debbie Nababian. I chair CB12 Traffic and Transportation Committee. Tonight we have an interesting evening, as all the attendees know. I first just want to start out by introducing who we've got here from the committee and from the board. And then we'll kind of move on, and I'm just looking to see if we've got the council member's office here yet. Okay. So from the committee tonight, we have Jim Berlin, Bruce Robertson, Jay Mazer, Jody Herson, the assistant chair, Leo Jimenez. James Bosley is officially on the committee, but he wasn't able to make this first meeting for him, so we will welcome him next month. From CB12 board members, we have Tanya Bonner, I see, and Wayne Benjamin. Thank you for joining us as well. Council member has arrived. So let me just talk a little bit about the evening. So tonight, I know we have a lot of people here for the 5G presentation and the City Office of Technology and Innovation. I'm going to hand it over to Council Member De La Rosa in a moment. And then I'm just looking to see if Catherine has joined. Okay, not yet. So we'll come back. We might have a few comments from our board chair, Catherine Diaz, who sort of initially activated and spoke with Stacy Gardner from the city about creating, oh, there she is. So actually, let me pass it to Catherine Diaz, CB12 board chair, to say a few things, and then we'll get over to the council member and our presentation.
Thanks, Debbie. Welcome everyone to our monthly Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. Thanks for sharing the floor. First off, thank you so much to everyone who's here from our community. We have received your questions and comments on behalf of the staff of the office. All of the folks who have emailed us have, whether it was a comment, a question, a formal statement, those have been shared with the Office of Traffic and, sorry, I'm all over the place. Office of Tech and Innovation, formerly Do It. And so they are in receipt of all of that. And, you know, things have been moving quite quickly in this space. And this is really, and I know Debbie spoke to it and we'll continue to talk about it, a space for conversation, for learning. Please use the Q&A and the chat to drop some questions. We're going to continue to monitor. And it's not the one and only conversation around internet access in our community or even around the Link 5G's installments. So this is really a starting point for folks to be able to learn what's happening, to share their concerns and questions. And it's really the space here for that. So I'm super happy that they were able to make it. And, you know, we worked with them, I think, maybe about 3 weeks ago, quickly to be able to put this together, and super grateful for the team at Traffic and Transportation to be able to host this conversation. So I'll pass it off to Carmen.
Thank you to the board chair, to Kathy for the invitation, and to Debbie Navavian, the chair of this committee. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. I want to say, first of all, that we're grateful for the Office of Technological Innovation for being here to share information. My office met with the Office of Technological Innovation a few weeks ago myself. I think there's a few things that we'd like to get clear here. First of all, I see this as a quest for information. We know that, for example, there is one tower that came in on Nagel Avenue that came in before I was the council member, that was cited there through a process that I am not as familiar with. So I want to be very transparent about that. But I also know that there are 4 proposed sites in the district. There is one site at 11 Nagel Avenue, another site at 689 Fort Washington, another one at 727 Fort Washington Avenue by the Jacob Javits Playground, and the last one at 100 Overlook Terrace. It is important for there to be a community process where we can have the conversations. We've received many concerned emails from folks who want to know about the science behind. They want to know about the process for siting the towers. They want to know if there's concerns, how they get those comments to the city. I want to say that the Office of OTI, which I know we'll hear from Stacy and others, is not a city agency. They are an office from the mayor's office. And so the jurisdiction there is a little different than a regular city agency. I want to say that one of the things I learned during our meeting is that Community Board 12 is considered an equity district. I look forward to have the conversation about what that means and what that means for our needs to have more accessibility when it comes to 5G technology. But I also want to make sure that I am clear that we want to center the voices of our community. We did get some folks who wrote in favor of having more 5G technology in the community, while there were still an overwhelming amount of people that are concerned. And so my hope for tonight is for us to partner together to, one, make sure that your voices are centered in this process, that my office is fielding your concerns and getting responses back. We also created a Google form to try and capture community concerns. And it is my understanding from my meeting with with OTI that there is also going to be some courtesy given for community comment and feedback. Of course, the question happens, what if the community is opposed? What happens then? So I want to just say that I am here to listen, to try and be someone who is going to take your voices with me to City Hall and have these conversations about the placement of these towers in our community. But also, I think overall, there is a larger conversation to be had about the infrastructure in Upper Manhattan and how we ensure that everyone has access to technology, obviously. So I look forward to this conversation. I'll be here the entire night, but also I have staff on the call that will be here to take notes. And I look forward to then downloading with the committee and Community Board 12 and others as we look forward towards solutions. Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you, Council Member. I appreciate you being here and all the leadership on this as we were kind of responding to the whole issue and the construction in front of 689 Port Washington 2 weeks ago, et cetera, et cetera. I also want to welcome, I didn't mention Danny Bonilla, another board member who is with us tonight, as well as our public member, Marshall Vanderpool. So just for people who this may be your first community board meeting. So what we're going to have is now we'll move into the presentation. There'll be an opportunity for people to ask questions, make comments. At that time, we'll have 2 minutes. Each person will have 2 minutes. And we will, there's kind of a minute. So to the extent you have a question that's part of your comment, there'll be an extra minute so that the presenters can respond. We have another presentation and another agenda item after this one. I am going to be a little bit sort of more focused on the timing than I normally might be. And I also think I reserve the right to step in when it's sort of the question time, because if we are getting questions clustered on the same themes, I want everybody to have a chance to speak and share their sort of point of view, but I don't want, OTI to answer the same question 3 different times, and we'll just sort of take each one at once and make sure that there's a chance to respond. But so for that minute 3, I might exercise a little discretion because we do need to also, we have a whole other presentation coming up tonight. So I just want to make a few comments on guardrails, just because there has been a lot of feedback on this already, just about sort of my approach in these meetings and sort of what you can expect. This is an opportunity for the community to learn what this initiative is, provide feedback, ask questions, all of that. I want us all to keep in mind that we have city agencies and sort of quasi agencies like this one, that's part of the mayor's office, that we charge with developing policy strategies and initiatives that fall out of those strategies. So in this instance, this initiative comes under a set of policy that community board, like this is not a reso item. Community board, this doesn't require formal community board input by way of a community board resolution, as sometimes happens, certainly on this committee, with changes to our streets. So also, this is not a policy-making body, a community board. So this isn't about debating the fundamental policy tonight. And so then I know some people might feel like, so what's the point of these sessions if ultimately it's not necessarily going to change the course of the program? And I would say that this space and you all being here tonight to share your feedback, your thoughts, your opinions, and your questions, while it may not have that direct, like this isn't about our ability to say, no, we veto this. At the same time, this is how we get to better policy over time. That's the first thing. We all know that diverse groups and large groups come together and make for a better outcome. I will also say that we do have a really important role to, at the community board level, to reflect district-specific considerations as it relates to policy. So again, your voice is important because, if there are things that are specific to our district, we always, whatever the policy and whatever we're considering at a particular meeting, that it's important to surface those things that might be more specific to us as well. So again, all this to say, thank you so much for taking the time out of your evening to be here. I'm gonna pass it to the OTI team. I also want to thank Chanel from CB12 office, who as you can see, we have a lot of panelists tonight, and Chanel's been coordinating, trying to make sure that everybody has what they need to deliver this tonight. So Stacy, I'm going to hand to you.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I won't go too much into what I normally do. I will be turning it over to Nick. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Stacy Gardner. I'm the Senior Director of External Affairs for the Office of Tech and Innovation. I just wanted to clarify one thing. We essentially are a city agency in that we're kind of the super group of all the tech agencies. So about a year ago, we were combined. DoIT, which is the agency I had been working for a few years, with the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics, Cyber Command, 311. I always forget a couple of them. The Mayor's Office of the Chief Technology Officer, and the Mayor's Office of Information Privacy. So we actually we have the franchise authority through DoIT. So we are a city agency in that way. But with me is my colleague, Brett Sykoff. He is the Executive Director of Franchise Administration at OTI. And I'm joined by Rob Zakota and Nick Colvin from CityBridge. They are the company that the city has the franchise with to do the Link NYC program. As I said, it is a franchise, which means that my agency oversees this contract that we have with a private company to use the city's rights of way, in this case, the streets and the sidewalks, for the provision of telecommunication services. In this case, we have free Wi-Fi, free phone calling, and now 5G service. So this is not a taxpayer funded endeavor. It is a revenue making endeavor that this company pays the city fees in order to use these rights of way. So that's what the relationship is there, just to make sure everyone is aware of that. But you know what, I'm gonna turn it over to Nick, because Nick is not just a high up official in CityBridge, but he is also one of your neighbors. So he has a unique perspective on this particular proposed set of sites in your district. So I'll just kick it over to you, Nick.
All right. Thank you, Stacy. And thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to come and present to you. Thank you, council member, and all of you on the community board and on the committee. And as Stacy said, I am the CEO at CityBridge, the company that operates the Link NYC system. I'm also a resident of Community Board 12 on the northern end of Washington Heights, up there near the bridge. As the council member said, this is an opportunity for us to share information with you and to get your feedback on the sites that we're proposing. As such, I prepared a short presentation to give an overview of Link NYC, the program, for those who aren't so familiar with it, the Link 5G and sort of 5G and cellular infrastructure deployment in the city generally, and why it's a priority, and how Link NYC and Link 5G fit into that. We also have maps of the proposed sites to walk through, and we're happy, of course, to answer questions for anything I don't cover in the presentation. It's fairly high level so that we can get through the presentation, hopefully relatively quickly, and get to the actual sort of feedback session of this and answering questions. So with that, if someone could enable screen sharing for me, I will go ahead and get started. All right, and can you all see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so what is Link NYC? Link NYC, the purpose of Link NYC is to provide free and equitable access to connectivity, information, and wireless services throughout New York City. Back in 2014, we partnered with the city to begin this program. I should say first, how do we provide that access? Through free public Wi-Fi that we're deploying throughout the city, free telecommunication services in the form of free nationwide calling on the tablets of the structures, emergency services access, other city services. We have video relay services for the deaf and hard of hearing. All of the services are accessible for those with various challenges like that. And we provide free advertising space for the city, for community boards, nonprofits and local businesses, as well as USB device charging. Back in 2014, when we kicked this program off with the city, we partnered to really create a first of its kind network that would remove and replace the more than 6,000 public pay telephones that were sort of littering the sidewalks of the city, and replace them with modern telecommunications, public communication structures, and provide the largest and fastest free public Wi-Fi network in the world. And we've achieved that already with a lot of success. More than 12 million people have signed up for this Wi-Fi. Tens of millions of calls have been made, and hundreds of thousands of calls to 911 and 311 and other services like that. Part of the goal of this was to address the digital divide. And in New York City, that divide is really stark and surprising to me every time I look at the numbers and see sort of, the needle's been moved, but not far enough. Like, we've got 40% of the city, or 3.4 million people, lack either home or mobile broadband, or have neither. And 1 in 10, I'd like to draw your attention to, have only cellular service to access the internet. The vast majority of us rely on it day to day when we're out and about the city. But the program in 2021 was expanded on beyond just the core free services to incorporate the provision of 5G cellular infrastructure as part of the telecommunications remit for the program. Along with that restructuring or that expansion came a commitment to equity for these new deployments to those areas of the city that are most in need of infrastructure investment in the form of fiber and Wi-Fi, but also cellular infrastructure. And with that, there was a commitment to maintain the design of the original structures and reflect that in the new 5G structures, and provide the enhanced 5G services with the help of our partner Zenfi, who previously had been our fiber partner and is now more involved in the wireless siting provision of the services. And to touch on that equitable deployment mandate, because it is particularly relevant to our community district, the city chose 13 community districts throughout the cities to receive at least 739 links, 73 in our Community Board 12 area, as part of this expansion of the program. These neighborhoods were chosen by the city based on lack of broadband options or lower median income, lack of links or other services, and density of population. So with this new expansion of the program came a new structure to support these additional services in the form of Link 5G here, which is the main thing that we're here to talk about, is the deployment of these new structures. And as you can see, it's been designed with an idea to maintain the familiar look and feel of the Link NYC. It has all the same services on the tablet, the free phone calling, the access to city services, the accessibility, device charging, et cetera. So why was 5G incorporated into this program's remit? So, as I noted earlier, 1 in 10 New Yorkers rely solely on their data service for their access to the internet. And, furthermore, everyone who uses cellular service day to day, I know lots of people I talk to personally have challenges frequently on the cellular network with dropped calls or data service not working. You might have 4 bars in your phone, but you can't open a web page. And it's really frustrating. And it's because there's a saturation of the network. More and more people are using the network, and they're consuming more and more data, and the overall infrastructure in the city hasn't really kept up with the demand. So to sort of help explain the evolution of cellular infrastructure and why we're building more of these and why Link 5G is necessary. Back in the early days of cellular service, when there were fewer users and there wasn't really cellular internet, it was just phone calling. You started with these macro cell towers, so these big towers that would cover large areas. As more people started joining the network, you needed to install more towers to support these additional, services and users that were using the network. So from these large cell towers, you got smaller macro cell towers, and then you came down to building tops and rooftops. And then in a city like New York, where it's so dense, you see that we need to move even closer and more dense, and you see the infrastructure moving into the public right-of-way or on the sidewalks. So really pole tops and now Link 5G are the options there. So just to sort of visualize this, on the left, you see the macro towers. You've probably seen these by the side of highways. On the right here, you can see the type of rooftop installations, which are really blanketing the city at this point. But even that isn't sufficient to keep up with the current demand. So you're seeing here on the left, what's called a pole top installation. These are installed on light poles. And on the right, you have a Link 5G. And while these are similar in terms of where they're located, they are very different. The pole top installations are good in that they use existing siting locations on top of lampposts, but they can only support a very small amount of infrastructure, really just one or two radios at the most. The Link 5G was designed specifically to support telecommunications infrastructure, so you can install one of these and support five radios, really all of the carriers, with multiple different technologies from 4G and 5G to really make a difference. So it's a purpose-built infrastructure. It minimizes the street clutter by maximizing the amount of infrastructure you have on a given footprint in the sidewalk. It does include what we call the digital safety net with a Wi-Fi and the phone calling emergency services that the pole top obviously doesn't come along with. And it's replacing existing payphone sidewalk sites, as well as some new installations to target gaps in the cellular service. And this slide really sort of highlights the breadth of technology that's supported on Link 5G. It's really the only solution for this in the city, and that's everything from the ultra fast, what most people think of as 5G, the ultra wideband stuff, as well as the Wi-Fi 6, the really fast Wi-Fi that can go a little further, and even down into the 4G band. So you can get services from Link 5G pretty far from and inside buildings in those areas, in the 4G bands they're called. And so when we were designing this, I just want to point out for those that aren't so familiar with cellular infrastructure, we looked at the landscape of what was available in what's called multi-tenant or purpose-built cellular infrastructure, and there was nothing good out there, which is why we designed the Link 5G. You had these giant poles that they're installing in New Jersey, or these kind of ugly poles like this one in Las Vegas on the right that have stuff sort of glommed on the side of them with cables and radios just hanging off it. They look kind of unsightly and they look different everywhere they're installed. The goal here was to have something sleek and contained that wasn't distracting to people and that looked unified across the city. And we worked really hard over many months with the Public Design Commission, and I think it was 5 public hearings on the design specifically to come to a design that would be the best it could be for New York City. And one last thing just to note with the Link 5G, where this program is installed, we need to deploy new fiber infrastructure, and fiber is really the backbone of the internet. And on the right here, you can see these green lines showing anticipated fiber deployment, and there's a significant amount up in CB12. And this represents additional core infrastructure that other service providers can utilize to increase diversity in the marketplace and increase competition and make, hopefully, service more available and also cheaper to people in these areas. So from that, we'll move on to where we're proposing to put Link 5G in Committee Board 12. First, I want to note that there's dozens and dozens and dozens of siting restrictions about where we can put a Link NYC structure, including Link 5G. And there's also some very specific restrictions for Link 5G itself, above and beyond those restrictions that apply to everything. One is that there's no advertising screens in residential areas. We can't have more than one Link 5G deployed on a block on either side of the street, so that there can't be too many of them close to each other. They can't be any closer than 200 feet, even if they're on separate blocks. There's additional approvals required for Link 5G if they're going to be adjacent to parks or in historic districts, for example. Here's a map of Community District 12 with all of the existing sites. So there are, as you probably know, a fair number of existing Link NYC locations, mostly located along Broadway. I think that's St. Nicholas in CB12, but also sort of throughout the district. And the squares that you see are the Link 5G candidate sites that we're here to discuss today. And one thing I do want to highlight is that we do take community feedback very seriously. These sites are chosen carefully and with regard to all of the siting criteria that are out there. But we also take feedback, and if there's a site that would work better somewhere else nearby, and still achieve the same goals from a cellular coverage perspective, and meet the siting criteria, I should say, more broadly, we absolutely do take that feedback very seriously and try to incorporate it. So to get into the specific sites that we are here to talk about, I'm going to hand it over to Rob Sakota, who is the president of wireless at CityBridge and oversees that aspect of the operation.
Thank you, Nick, and thank you to all the members of the committee who are taking the time to meet with us tonight and hopefully learn more about the Link NYC program, and hopefully we can answer your questions about the program itself and the particular sites that we're proposing to place the Link 5G kiosk that Nick discussed. There are actually two separate batches of proposed sites we have. There was a batch that was proposed by OTI, and a letter went out to various elected officials and the community board back in October, and then a separate letter with a number of sites in November. And we'll go through each of the two sites as Nick's got displayed here. The October candidate sites are the blue squares up around the four of them are around the park. The November sites are the green squares, mostly on the eastern side of the community district. But as I said, we'll go through each one. So Nick, can go to the first slide. So this is just a listing of the addresses for the 4 October sites: 11 Nagel, 689 Fort Washington Avenue, which obviously has gotten a lot of feedback, 7727 Fort Washington Avenue, and 100 Overlook. So the first site is actually, it's 11 Nagel. It's very close to the corner of Broadway. It is the site of an existing, a traditional, what we call 1.0 Link NYC kiosk, the 9.5-foot version. We're looking at this site as a potential to be replaced with the Link 5G, which is, as Mick mentioned, the 9.5 version of the kiosk. 9.5-foot version of the kiosk provides free Wi-Fi, it provides the free phone calling, but doesn't provide the same level of cellular coverage or potential for cellular coverage. So that's a site that's under consideration currently. One thing I did want to mention as well is, although we're proposing these 9 sites tonight, the reality of the way the process works is, in many instances, we get feedback from the community, we make adjustments. In other instances, the reality is that things change over time. And whereas when we went out and surveyed a site, sometimes things have occurred since then and the site is no longer viable by the time we deploy. In other cases, once we start the deployment, we find that there are underground construction issues which might prohibit us putting a Link 5G at the site. So while we're proposing these 10 sites tonight, the reality is in many instances, some of these sites won't come to fruition because of some of these intervening elements, but let's keep going, Nick. So the next site is 689 Fort Washington Avenue. This obviously is the site that's created a lot of feedback from the community and from residents of 689 Fort Washington Avenue. The site is actually located on 190th Street, very close to the corner of Corbini Boulevard, but it is next to the building that you see there in the picture is 689 Fort Washington. The site is set back several feet from the back of the building and is opposite, I guess, what is a small parking lot for the building in the back. Next slide. Next site is 727 Fort Washington Avenue. As I think this was mentioned later, this is opposite the Jacob Javits playground and is actually located inside the park area or on the street adjacent to the park area. One of the things that we talked about briefly is that there are multiple levels of review for the placement of kiosks in many instances. And this site in particular, because it's located next to a park and because it's also located in a scenic district, would be subject to review from both the Parks Department and from the Landmarks Preservation Committee, in addition to our normal siting. So this site still has some additional review to go through before we would be able to start work on it. Next site is 100 Overlook Terrace. It's right around the corner on the turn of the terrace, overlooking over the terrace. It is not a site immediately next to a building. There are buildings across from it, and obviously there's a building over there on the right, maybe 30 or 40 feet. All right, and now we have another set of proposed sites, 6 of them here. These are sites which OTI sent out in a letter in November, both to local elected officials and to the community board. And we'd like to review those sites as well tonight. First site is 2178 Amsterdam Avenue, close to the corner of 168th Street. It's in front of a workout gym called Drip and Sweat. Next slide. Next site is 2194 Amsterdam Avenue, in front of a nail and spa, very close to the corner of 169th Street. Next site is 4188 Broadway. And this site is, as I mentioned before, since the time of this survey and these pictures are taken, there's been some developments. I went out and was looking at the sites this weekend, and there's actually I think a COVID testing booth at this almost exact location where we were proposing to put the Link 5G. So, because there's been some type of intervening event, we probably need to look at this site further. It may no longer be appropriate for the Link 5G installation. Next site is 3849 10th Avenue, very close to the corner of 206th Street, in front of a clinic and a pharmacy there. I think this one is also on right next to the elevated 1 train right across from it. Next slide. Next site is 2145 Amsterdam Avenue. It's in front of an establishment called, I think, the 3 Palms, which I believe is a bar. And it is very close to 166th Street. And then the last site on the list is another one where developments have taken place. This is at 515 West 186th Street. Is essentially next to a charter school, I think the Washington Heights Expeditionary and Learning School. That the whole school, both on this side of the street and all around the corner, I guess, is under some type of renovation currently. So there's scaffolding, at this very location and on, up both 183rd Street and Amsterdam Avenue. So, it's not clear to me what we would do at this site. It's probably needs to be moved, or if we wanted to put it there, it probably would be significantly delayed, but we'd have to look at that a lot more before we decide what to do. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
I'm just gonna jump in here. Sorry, there is more of the presentation, or are we at the? Oh, no. Okay. All right. So I'm actually going to start with the council member, but I'm hearing this from both the chair and the council member that if you can just start off by telling us, like, there was package 1, there was package 2. We had the issue that the 689, as we understood it, the reason there started to be break ground because it related to package 1, which had its public comment period reach its conclusion. But you just went through a whole bunch of sites that the council member and the chair had never seen. Like, what are those that have never come in front of CD12? And so just so address that, and then we're going to go council member, CB12 chair, and then Jim Berlin. And just for everybody else's edification, we go through committee first, and then we go to our attendee list.
I can start. So we have a process that is memorialized in a memorandum of understanding with all 5 borough presidents that requires us to notify local elected officials, including council members, and the community boards, borough presidents, and if applicable, the business improvement districts. So when we send these new locations out, we send a letter to all of those entities. When that letter is sent out, a 60-day comment period begins, in which we receive comments, or we're typically asked to come to a meeting like this, and we've done many of these over the last several months. I had sent probably like 20 to 30 of these letters. We're doing a full city rollout all at once. So many of these went out. I send them to the contacts that I have in each district. If folks didn't receive them, or if I didn't follow up enough to make sure that folks did, I know that inboxes get very full, including my own. Any council office would as well. The community boards, you guys probably get bothered with notices on a daily basis. So
Stacey, I want you to focus on, I understand there was a letter with the first couple.
Yeah.
There was a letter with the next several, like 4, but then we've just gone through a whole bunch, right? And this and that and the other. So,
yeah.
I mean, if you want, let's just maybe go to the council member, because it's just like, I'm trying to just,
Sure.
What is that third category of stuff that no one's ever seen? That's what I'm trying to get. I don't think it's a matter of like, actually,
Let me be very clear. Hold on, Stacey. When we met 3 weeks ago, we met 2-3 weeks ago, we talked about the 4 sites that I have since even published on my social media accounts. In that meeting, I said to you, if you all sent an email in October, the email was missed. So email is not the best way to communicate with our office, number one, because we get hundreds of emails a day. You are intergovernmental affairs. That means that you are supposed to interact with government agencies. That is your job, number one, because now I am livid. Number two, we got one email about the 4 sites. I never seen the next phase of sites that you're talking about, these other 5. I never saw them. And not only did I not see them, I had a whole meeting with you all where you could have told me there are 5 other sites in your district that we are considering. That never happened, to be very clear. Number 2, the construction that is being talked about on Fort Washington Avenue. When we met, I said, if we are going to take a moment to take public input, construction should not be happening. So I want to be very clear about that, because what is the point of public input if we're going to continue to dig holes on our streets? That is disrespectful to the community because they feel like their input is not valid. And number 3, you talked about a charter school. It's not a charter school. It is a New York City public school. It is PS 143, and Wheels is an outward bound school that is sharing space with that school. But in addition to that, the pole that is on Nagel Avenue is also in front of a New York City public school. And to my knowledge, those school communities have not been notified about these poles. And so we need to really work on what you all consider outreach, what you all consider communication with elected officials, because I'm telling you right now that this is unacceptable. And this should not be the first time that I'm hearing about it in a community board meeting.
Understood.
So we need to figure out how it is that we're going to have these conversations, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that this is the first time that we're hearing about it.
All right, and just Stacy, before you respond more, Catherine, I'm just going to ask our chair to speak, because I imagine it's sort of you were also involved from the get-go.
Yeah. No, I mean, Carmen, I can't say it better than what Carmen said. This is all brand new information. And, I don't want to also waste folks who are here from Fort Washington's time. So, because I want to be able, when there's process questions, I would like for us offline to have a conversation so we can replicate the same thing for all the sites that we saw that are on Amsterdam Avenue, which is on a whole different, has its own community, right? We're talking about Amsterdam in the 170s, very different from the concerns that are being brought up here in the chat from folks who live on Fort Washington, when they're also bringing up landmarked and have different, residential concerns. I also want to, again, emphasize, we were alerted to this because I came in as chair on January 1st. My understanding was, and we received alert as an office was because we were receiving public comments from community members, and because our committee chairs were also receiving them. Committee chairs, that was not Debbie, right? Folks in health, folks in parks, all over were receiving these concerns. And the only thing we had to go off was a patch article. And it wasn't until, thanks to Carmen's office, that we were able to have a conversation with external affairs at OTI to discuss that, probably about a week before the public comment period, right? And we were able to, talk about the extension of the public comment period, but also there's no way we can comment on something we don't have any information on. And so wanting to have, again, a tailored presentation that wasn't, the same thing that's on the website, that is partially what we're receiving here today. So, again, because of people's time, there are folks here from Wheels. I just want to reiterate what that process was. This is all brand new information. And I'm equally, upset because we literally have a conversation on Friday. And so if that was going to be the case, we could have built time inappropriately to have folks from those niche communities in our community address that. So I think for the time that we have a lot of folks who are super engaged and have really big questions. I would want us to focus on the 4, and more than happy to meet throughout this week or in the next week so we can schedule something bigger for folks who live in the 170s in Amsterdam.
Got it. Again, if there was a miscommunication at some point, I will take full responsibility for it, since I am the one who sends these out and I interface with the elected officials and the community board. So if that was an oversight of mine, I do take responsibility for it. I just wanted to reiterate that, the reason that we do this comment period and the reason that we come to these types of meetings is precisely to get that community context, so that we can understand where these are being placed in the neighborhood. So sometimes community boards are not interested in engaging on it, and sometimes they're very much interested. It really depends. We've been in all 5 boroughs, so we're here to listen and answer your questions. So we can start with that.
Okay, so we're gonna now move into more of our normal thing. I'd like to also welcome 2 more board members, Osi Kaminer and Maria Luna, I see have joined us. But Stacy, I think we'll come back to sort of, as Catherine said, sort of the process to give people an opportunity to respond, because some, these latter things are sort of under consideration sites haven't been put in front of us, as we understand. And so we're going to need to figure out a process. So thank Catherine for that. Okay, so here's the hit list. Jim Berlin, and then we'll move to, and then Jay Mazer, and then we'll move to board member questions. I know we have OC. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you. I believe that the installation at Cabrini Boulevard and 190th Street is one of the ones we had timely, notice on. Now, the thing that's odd about that particular installation, there's a whole park to the west of it, but that section of the park is in fact a bird sanctuary, and it has practically nobody in it most of the time. So my comment on this particular tower is that much of its range will not be, useful to people, because again, parks basically discourages people from being in the bird sanctuary for obvious reasons. Thank you. And thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jim. Anybody from City Bridge to sort of have a short response on that sighting, which, sort of to one side has no humans.
Yeah, I mean, this is Rob Scott. I can respond. A lot of times there's a balance, right? In some areas, much more dense areas, there may be a lot of coverage already. In other areas, as you mentioned, near the Jacob Javits Park or playground, there may be fewer people, but the coverage may be worse. Particularly near parks, you can't have, for example, a large, tower that you might have off of a highway. You may not have buildings where you can have cell phone coverage. So, we're trying to solve for a number of different problems, and both for existing coverage and potentially for as coverage or as demands on the network change or increase in the future, people are trying to plan ahead, because these sites do take a long, long time to plan and then build. Mobile carriers are always looking to try to get ahead so that they don't have problems down the road. So you may be right. It's clear. I've been up in this area. It is less densely populated than, frankly, all of the other sites that we've proposed. But at the same time, I think the issue is that there's probably some more significant challenges in terms of meeting the needs of people who do use that area.
Yeah, I'll also chime in there too, Robin. I think Rob's right in terms of the lack of other sighting options is likely playing into this. That's also an extremely heavily trafficked street, and these sites that are on the sidewalk, like Link 5G, are really targeted at primarily serving people that are in the street, either in their cars or walking by, and that Cabrini is a major thoroughfare there. And by servicing people in the streets, that helps take demand off of the towers that are serving people that are in their homes or further away from where this particular tower would be located.
Okay. Jay Mazer?
Well, first of all, and this is just a minor point, Cabrini Boulevard is not a major thoroughfare. It's a secondary road or a tertiary road. But I'd like to discuss just a little the question of process raised very eloquently by the councilwoman and our board chair. And I feel that this is not a minor point and reflects poorly on the Adams administration. And just to correct any misunderstanding, this technology effort is not being put across by any city agency in the accepted meaning of the word city agency, such as the Department of Parks or the Buildings Department. It's being put across by the mayor's office. And I would hope that the errors pointed out do not continue, and that we could use this forum for the purpose of resetting those communications problems from the mayor's office. And I feel that would be significant to any development of this important technology effort. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jay. Next, OC Kaminer.
Thank you, Debbie. Council Member De La Rosa, I just want to, one of the things that we should look into is health issues, health effect of those towers. There was mentioned in the presentation about how close or far those towers from schools. And I wonder, why is this really important if there are no health effects? So, and if there are health effects on children's, then there are probably something, or like some health effect about for adults. So what we need to find out is what are the health effects, and what we need to have the presenters tell us right now. It's a yes or no question. Those towers can cause cancer. And we need to be clear on that. And I would like to hear from the presenter. It's a yes or no question. And I know what I'm asking, so yes, I would like to get an answer on this.
Thanks, OC.
So I am not a scientist. I do not opine on that kind of thing. However, what I can tell you is that all the telecommunications equipment that is installed on city property pursuant to this franchise and our other franchises, which allow equipment on light poles and utility poles. So those are thousands of these are all across the city. In our contracts, those companies must abide by the FCC's regulations on radio frequency emissions. Those are regulated by the federal government. So while the city doesn't have a lot of jurisdiction over that, we do have provisions in our contracts to ensure that those companies such as City Bridge, such as Zenfi, and other companies that we have contracts with, I think there's about 10, Brett, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we have about 10 companies that can deploy this equipment throughout the city, and we keep them to that standard.
That didn't answer my question.
Yeah. OC, I got it. Okay, so wait a minute. City team. lots of people have concerns, and they may be not supported by science, or they may be supported by science, about like, are these things dangerous to me in any way? Okay, that's helpful information to know that the FCC regulates this, and so they put a limit on this. But I think, let's talk, like, as real people are looking at this, we just want to know, like, so these towers are not considered to be a threat in any way, and that still does then leave us wondering, then why are you not permitted to put it near a school? What is that reason? So I understand everybody's obeying this and that, but like, just as real thing, because then we're going to have other questions on it, so let's just deal with it now. Like, you know what the frequently asked questions are on these towers. You had every opportunity, like, let's not do it in like government speak, let's just do it in like real, you know what's concerning people. You have seen this movie, like, let's just get to what people are concerned. If we don't need to be concerned, then let's hear it. I understand you're not the scientist, but like, this is a massive infrastructure initiative. Like, if you don't feel like it's, that those questions, like, people do not need to worry, then tell us why we don't, especially when we hear this issue about like, oh, but it can't be sited near this. Why?
Maybe Stacy, if you don't mind, I can.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I am not a scientist either, but if you want a yes or no answer to your question, the answer is no. Utilizing the way that we've got them placed, there is no health concern. These things are outside. They are, I do not believe they will create any risk to anyone's health. They do need to be sited some number of feet away from the public, because those are the rules, but there are no studies. People will disagree, but I do not believe there are any studies indicating that there's any health concerns created by these towers. I would also add that to the extent that people are concerned because they don't believe that science, then okay. But the reality is, items in your home, like your cell phone that you carry around in your pocket, or the Wi-Fi router that most people on this call are probably sitting in a house inside of their home, is a lot more concerning from that perspective. I don't believe either one are concerning, but if those are going to be concerns you have, a small cell transmitter outside someone's home should be lower on the priority list than something you utilize every day that you carry around on your body, or something that sits in your room as you sit in your computer. That is my view, and and the answer, your straight answer to your question, yes or no, the answer from my perspective is no.
You're muted, Debbie.
You're on mute, Debbie.
Sorry. Thank you. As we move over to now, anybody who would like to make a statement, people again will have 2 minutes on the attendee list. Just throw up that hand. Awesome. I see now the hands are going up. And I guess I would say, I appreciate that answer, Rob. But just as you're listening to other people's questions, again, this is not, you're not like a normal agency who like has to come and like present things, and I appreciate you being there. But this isn't like you from your perspective. This is the Office of Technology who's responsible for citywide technology policy. And so I would feel more comfortable hearing some of these answers as, you own the technology strategy and policy for this city, and there are reasons you do these things. You wouldn't do things, I imagine, that would hurt people and whatever, but it's not you, Rob. It's not you, Stacy, but you do have to speak for the citywide policy, which this community is trying to understand because these polls are going up. I'm sorry. Okay. So as we move to the attendees, everybody's got 2 minutes. if I see we're kind of getting things repeated, then I'll ask that third minute to sort of, I'll do some consolidating, but let's just get started with everybody knowing that then there's like a little minute to get some response if you're asking for it. And please do tell me like you are a CB12 resident, you're coming from outside CB12 to make a statement, an advocacy statement, just tell me who you are. And we're gonna start with Tom O'Toole, and you can go ahead, Tom.
That's great. Thank you very much. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can.
Awesome. So I'm a shareholder at 689 Fort Washington, and I'm also a member of the board. And a lot of folks within our building are actually very concerned because the tower location, and we know exactly where it's going to be because before there was really any notice, the installation began and concrete was poured right outside our building. That location is 10 feet from resident windows where kids actually sleep. I'm not like, this isn't like scare tactics. I'm not painting a picture that's incorrect. The picture that you actually showed within your deck was actually taken from across the street, and there's a car conveniently placed so that you can't actually see the location, which is pretty well done, pretty crafty. So you can't actually see the location of where that pad is. And the pad is on, yes, from there, it looks like, yeah, it's next to an unused parking lot. But the reality is that back corner of the building does have multiple apartments where not only, of course, we have 6 floors right there, where there are resident apartments, but several of them have kids. And there's bedrooms, which if they reached out their window, 10 feet away is a tower. And there's no, Mr. Sakota, there is no longitudinal studies. You know, you're trying to quote science and use that as a way to call the residents of CB12 and the citizens of the city as being like stupid or uneducated. But the reality is you can't try to quote science when science has not been done. No one has ever lived next to a tower like this for a long time. And I'm 100% positive you would not live within 10 feet of a tower with one right outside your window for a couple of reasons. One of them being, yes, the health and safety and also the perception of that, right? Which is sort of an issue. But because of all of that, the impact upon future property values of folks that are living next to these, that's actually a real concern. And you're unable to actually give a straight answer as far as why is there no locations against, right next to a school or within 100 yards of a school, as you can see, or 50 yards of a school. You can't be across the street from the school. You can't be like near a school, but you can be 10 feet from a window where people live. Now, why is there no ability just to, take the feedback and then maybe move the tower and maybe work with the community on finding a better location? Another question that I have is just that stretch of Cabrini, because it's actually on the corner of Cabrini and 190th Street.
You have a few more seconds.
That's actually not a population center. So if you're broadcasting signals there, you're going to address the birds, or you're going to address the backside of some buildings.
All right,
the backside of the Success Academy, but there's not much more there. So my last question.
No, Tom, that's it. Tom, that's 3 minutes. So I'm gonna have to.
I appreciate your time very, very much, and I do appreciate the courage that Stacy and Mr. Sakota have coming here, and Nick as well. Thank you very much.
Tom, thank you for being here. We're gonna go next to
Debbie.
I just want to clear something up. There's no sighting restriction next to schools. I'm not sure where that came from. I just want to clear that up. There isn't any sighting restriction that relates to health and safety whatsoever, actually, in our sighting requirements. I don't know if Nick addressed this when he spoke before, but our sighting criteria is based on distances from other infrastructure, so that it doesn't interfere with each other physically. So it can't be too close to a tree pit or a curb cut or a fire hydrant or a bus stop shelter. or any variety of other things. There's over 100 siting criteria, and only one of these can be on one block on one side of the block. That's the biggest restriction for the Link 5Gs. But they have to have enough sidewalk clearance. I believe it's 9 feet. If any of you guys can quote me on that, I think it's 9 feet. So
8 feet sidewalk.
Actually, guys, I gotta keep this moving. I think let's maybe come back to it, but I don't think.
Okay, just wanted to clear that up.
Point taken. So what you're saying is the site criteria doesn't relate to health and safety issues. It just is sort of more physical issues. We're going to move to Odette Wilkins.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
We can. Hey, Odette.
Hi, I'm President and General Counsel of Wired Broadband, and I actually grew up in Washington Heights. I grew up at 124 Fort George Avenue across from George Washington High School, and I went to Mother Cabrini. And I have to say that the siting of these towers on either side of Mother Cabrini Shrine is sacrilegious. Mother Cabrini is buried there. There should be no cell towers around that. That should be an historic district. And secondly, in terms of health concerns, the FCC emission limits have been discredited by the DC Circuit Court of Appeals in 2021 for failing to take into consideration 11,000 pages of scientific studies of biological harms below the FCC limits. Also, Senator Blumenthal of Connecticut established for the telecom industry that there has been no pre-market testing of 5G for public safety or for public health. The WHO, the World Health Organization, International Agency for Research on Cancer, classified wireless radiation as a possible human carcinogen back in 2011. Now, a number of the scientists who were in that working group are calling this a human carcinogen. There is no doubt about that. A study in 2000 was commissioned by T-Mobile, one of the major telecom carriers, and it was found. Their scientists found links to cancer, leukemia, neurological disorders, cognitive impairment, with special caution for children and an acknowledgement for those who are already suffering from radiation. Now, with respect to the telecoms saying, or the city saying that there are gaps in service, well, where are the reports? The telecoms have to show by drive-by tests that there is an actual gap in service. And under federal law in New York, unless there is a significant gap in service and they're using the least intrusive means possible, they have no right to come into your neighborhood. That is the law in New York. Thank you very much. And I'm also a technology attorney, so I know the benefits and I know the risks of technology. Thank you.
Thanks, Odette. Marshall, you are up next.
Thank you, Debbie. What I'd like to ask, I'm trying to get my arms around this project. I mean, when we started the meeting, there were 4 sites. Seems like 6 more sites got added out of process, and well, that's something you guys got to work on. I guess my basic question is, how many sites are we looking at, and what kind of goal is it to install all these sites as far as time-wise? And I'll land my plane right here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good question, Marshall.
Nick, do you want to take that?
Sure. So there are 10 proposed sites, as Rob walked us through earlier in the presentation. That I understand there was some disconnect in terms of how all of those got communicated in front of folks. But there are 10 sites currently proposed, from some of them, I would say are further along than others. Obviously, the one at 689 Fort Washington had begun construction already. There are others like the one I think it's 727 closer to Fort Tryon Park, still has to go through several of the rounds of agency review. And then there are other sites that are in various stages, but all of them not as far along as that 689 Fort Washington. And there's sites that require further review. Like some of these sites, as Rob said, may never get built. because of intervening factors, whether it's other construction or conditions of the ground. Regardless, I would say all of them are many months into the future before they're ultimately installed, if they are installed. Now, there are, as I mentioned, Community Board 12 is an equity district, so there will be additional sites that will be proposed in the future, I would imagine. But this is what we're here to talk about now. This is the sort of the comment period is these 10.
Okay, so, and we don't have to answer this right now, but again, coming back to where we started, I think there's like a disconnect between what gets presented as part of a formal comment period versus a category of things that was presented tonight. Like, I think, is it the case that the new things that came on the scene tonight that neither Kathy nor the council member's office, et cetera, had seen before, were those because they weren't far enough along to sort of be in a public comment letter, or were we saying that all 10 of those have been in one of the 2 letters? Because as I understood it, there had been 2 letters, one which was kind of like everybody kind of missed, it included the 689 Port Washington, and that public comment period had ended. Then we had the one that we all saw, and it had its public comment period, and Kathy called to say, please extend that, and that listed another series of sites, but then there were new ones. So right, so
I believe
like
that
the ones we hadn't said, is that because they haven't opened for their public comment? And I know, Jim, I know I'm causing this one, but
I believe that, of the 10, the first 4 that we walked through were from the first letter that I guess everyone missed. The second 6 were from the second letter that we extended the comment, or that Stacy had extended the comment period on. So those are the 2 letters that I'm aware of anyways. Now, we're not, City Bridge isn't directly
okay,
in
but the Amsterdam ones were not on either letter, as I remember. So
No, the November letter, the November 16 letter, and again, I don't know, perhaps it's didn't go where it needed to go, or people inboxes were full, but there is a November 16 letter that covers the 6 site, including the Amsterdam ones that I reviewed.
okay, so we'll offline council member, et cetera, et cetera.
We'll make
Okay.
sure that all of them match up.
okay.
And basically nothing would be coming to you guys that isn't in a proposed stage. So we're coming to you at kind of an early stage in the process, because we want to take a look at all the intervening factors. Typically, the process takes a little bit of time. I think in the case where shovels went in the ground, I think Rob or Nick, you can speak to the construction sequencing and all of that, but sometimes it takes a lot longer from comment period to when things actually get constructed, which is why there was some confusion there as well. But
all right, well, let's just sort of take a pause on that, but we'll keep circling back. Derek Ratzenbach.
Yes, hello. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming and showing up for this very important meeting. And I just want to say the quote unquote proposed word is very disingenuous, because quite honestly, you said that the initial period ended, maybe January 16th? But before that, there was a prior CB12 meeting saying that, don't worry, we have plenty of time to comment and that there will be a presentation next month. Now, you say it ended January 16th. Well, the morning of January 23rd, I was awoken up by jackhammers and other residents saying that there's construction being done. So I go out there, and without any response to even comments or even regarding any of the community concerns, I had to go out there and just see, look, this is happening and we don't care about your comments. And I had to go and contact, and thank you, Carmen De La Rosa, for being there, and also thank James Burke. I had to call the office, and thank God I did, because if that wasn't, communication didn't happen, I believe that there would be a 5G tower out there right now. So the word proposed is bad faith. And there, we weren't even given any other options or any other placement, maybe to a place that is nearer to a true thoroughfare, maybe by city bikes, maybe by places that someone will be charging a cell phone. Maybe that will be used. No one's going to be using a kiosk behind my building. And I didn't introduce myself properly maybe, but I am the president of my board here, and I've been receiving lots of concern, and Tom said a lot of those concerns very eloquently. I don't want to repeat myself, but this is very concerning overall, that if there wasn't intervention, there would be a poll right there without any response to any of our concerns. And also I want to ask, so is this replacing rooftop antennas completely? Are those going, is that an option as an alternative for buildings to put up rather than having them on the streets? So anyway, this is just something I'm very concerned about. Is my final thing I'd just like to ask, is this final, or is it possible to move this tower?
Okay, so first I'll setting aside the process mix-ups that have happened, because there's been a lot of talk about that. Specifically to your question about the rooftop installations, no, this does not replace rooftop installations, as I was trying to, but at a very quickly tried to explain in my presentation. This is, we need to densify, our carriers need to densify their networks in order to support the demand on those networks. So this is supporting, in addition to rooftop and macro tower sites, these are additional sites to meet that additional demand, both of today and in the future in the city.
Okay, thank you. All right, so just in the interest of time, I'm going to just cover who our last three questioners: Susan Peters, Donna Filipponi, Allison Spitz-Peary, and then we're going to close this topic out. And I also want to hold the question that we didn't have a moment to answer, but let's come to at the end of, like, is this that one particular location a definitive location? But first, let me go to Susan Peters.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. I'm a member of a local group, New Yorkers for WireTech. And in addition to saying, please look at the 2021 case against the FCC, it has all of the information you would need.
Like, so you didn't answer.
Sorry,
Hello?
sorry. Let me just see who's not on mute. If you are not Susan Peters, you should be muted. Go ahead, Susan.
Okay. Did you hear what I said about the FCC?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I want to read something that was sent by a member of the State of New Hampshire Commission on 5G, writing to Manhattan Community Board number 9. I am writing you as a former member of the New Hampshire State Commission that was tasked with exploring the environmental and health effects of evolving wireless and 5G technology. The commission was formed through bipartisan legislation and was supported by the governor. The commission was comprised of unbiased experts in fields relating to health and radiation, and were highly qualified to evaluate the issue in a fair and in-depth manner. The commission submitted its final report in November 2020, with a key finding being that exposure to wireless communication radiation is harmful to the health of humans and the environment. And I just want to say, you can listen to this gentleman present to Queens Community Board 1, because they had January 25th, they had him present along with other people and along with OTI, and his presentation is incredible. You can go to the website for Queens Community Board 1, and they have the full video of that meeting, please. It's so important to have the facts. Thank you.
Susan, thanks for pointing people there and your comment. Next, we have Donna.
Hi, my name is Donna Filippone. I live at the corner of 900 West 190th Street. My bedroom is opposite where you were digging the hole a couple of weeks ago. I was out there with Derek. Mr. Sakota, I know you don't care truly, because I'm sure you would not have one of these industrial columns on your front yard. Nor, I would love to know where Mr. Colvin lives, because if you want to put the tower right opposite your apartment window, go right ahead. And Stacy, you should know better. None of you have the data. The federal government is not trustworthy, as we all know from back in the day of Erin Brockovich and whole communities where they're dying of cancer years after the government allowed chemical seepage into the waterways and that kind of thing. I can assure you that even though I sit, yes, I have a cell phone, Mr. Sakota. Yes, I have a microwave. Yes, I have a router that's 4 feet from my desk, and I have horrible service, but I am not willing to compromise this neighborhood with your frigging industrial tower that does not belong on a bird migration route, nor on a landmarked park from the Revolutionary War, okay? It doesn't belong here. Go put it down by the highway. Go put it down by the George Washington Bridge. Yes, not in my backyard. But I promise you that none of you are signing up, volunteering to have one of these hideous industrial towers in a completely residential neighborhood where there is no one looking to make a pay phone call on the corner of 190th and Cabrini. Thank you, Carmen, for following up with this. You people are disgusting.
Hey, Donna.
What?
Blow your roll. This isn't, don't get personal. You have a point to make, then make it. But I have no time for.
I'm done. They wouldn't have it in their yard, Debbie, and you know it.
Allison?
Sorry, I think you can hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm a member of the board for 720, 730 Fort Washington Avenue Owners Corp. We're the 2 most northern buildings on Fort Washington Avenue, directly across from Jacob Javits Playground. People in our buildings very upset. We submitted petitions with well over 100 signatures. We had to send them to about a dozen different city offices because despite speaking personally with Mark Levine and Senator Robert Jackson, nobody knew where to make this large public comment. We didn't know when the public comment period ended or if it ended. And this is speaking to our borough president and state senator. And I spoke with them personally. We are very upset that in one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the city, in a park, in a scenic landmark area, we're beside ourselves how one would even think to place the towers here. This is a very non-dense area. You talk about density requiring these additional cell phone towers. This is probably one of the least dense places in all of Manhattan. I walk my dog. I sit on my phone while I'm talking on my phone. I walk along Cabrini. I walk through the park. I'm on Fort Washington Avenue. I don't know where you get the facts. I have no problem with connectivity. Most of the buildings in this neighborhood are fully wired. This is the wrong neighborhood. It's the wrong neighborhood because it's resources we don't need, because it's not dense, and because you're really affecting the scenic value of the neighborhood. And I don't understand why you would put these towers right in front of a park with children playing and a school.
Okay, thanks, Allison.
Thank you.
And I think that petition has been shared with the office, right? I feel like it has. That's right. Yeah.
We emailed it to Link NYC. We emailed it to multiple.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'm seeing head nods. Okay. I know. I thought. Okay. You know, and I should note that the borough president did a letter on this. Just again, speaking to the community process. So, all right. All right, I'm going to break my own rule. I'm going to take one more comment. We have somebody on the phone, 914 number. I'm going to give you have 2 minutes. Try to be brief.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Hi, my name is Eula. I just had a couple quick comments. I noted that the representative from Link 5G was mentioning the towers would not or could not substitute the towers that are on roofs, that they would be there to support current but also future demand. And it's my understanding, as was mentioned prior, that they need to demonstrate a gap in service, but also that the towers can't be cited as used for future demand that is not currently needed. So that's something to look into. And also, I just wanted to say that while it's true that many people have cell phones and Wi-Fi routers, those are choices, things that, you know, I personally turn off my cell phone at night. I unplug my Wi-Fi router at night so I can control the exposure in my living space. But if you have a 5G tower 10 feet from your window emanating in, you can't turn that off when you go to sleep, which is when your body needs to repair. And it's a really important time to not have that exposure. There's been studies that show that melatonin production goes down when there is radiation during sleep, and melatonin is directly correlated to killing off cancer cells. So anyway, I just want to say that, you know, while people make that choice, it's a choice that you should have. Do you want that exposure or not? And you won't be able to turn that tower off. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you again for everybody that has come out tonight and share their point of view. I guess what I will just ask in night, and I think because we've had a council member here all night and our CB12 chair as well, I think people are pretty clear on sort of the follow-ups. And I just will ask the city just to take just 1 more minute at the end and then just give people a summary, a quick answer on for the 689 Fort Washington site, is that a done deal? Can that be considered? There is a lot of obviously direct feedback about that site in particular. And then also, how can people, is there links they can go to if they want to get more information that was presented tonight, learn more about what are the siting criteria, that kind of thing, what's available to the average person. And if we can put something into the Q&A with links or whatever, this would be the time to do it. And I want to thank you, the whole team, for being here. Nick, Rob, Stacy, Brad, and I'm sorry if I'm missing anybody else.
So none of the sites that we have talked about tonight are done deal. We will follow up with you, Debbie, and Catherine, and the board staff, just to make sure that we've compiled all of the relevant information that we can use to kind of look at the specific sites that people raise concern about, and whether we can search for alternatives in a nearby area. And as Nick mentioned, we have done that in our process for many other boards throughout the city. There have been several recently that we have remediated based on some of that feedback. So absolutely, they are proposed, including the one where concrete has been poured. It is the city, OTI has the ultimate authority over what happens with these sites. And while we did give them a notice to proceed, which is why they started, they didn't go against anything in the contract. I just want to make it clear. We gave a notice to proceed. They were acting on it. We can rescind it. So based on the miscommunication that was on our part, none of these sites are moving forward until we take a look at all of the feedback we've received. And the board office did send me some. We are looking for site specific feedback. So all of that, we will work with you guys to compile it, and we will work through any outstanding issues there might be on specific sites. So absolutely.
Okay. And I just hope, thank you, Jim. Again, I thank you again. I know this wasn't easy to do. I think this does highlight an issue. I mean, Stacy, in terms of bringing it up above that, agencies sort of have a built-in way that they can kind of interact in the community. You guys are a little bit different, but this really does show a gap in I think at the very local level of our ability to understand technology policy citywide. And I think that there's a real opportunity for OTI and this mayor to sort of try to close that gap a little bit. So that's what I will leave you with. Thank you again for everybody who came out for this. For those who are interested, we have the most patient partners at Wheels who have been doing some great advocacy over a number of years. We haven't seen them in a while, so we've been really looking forward to having them here to update us on what's happening. So with that, I want to welcome Genesis and Noelia, no?
Yes, we have 3 other students that will be presenting. Can we make them panelists?
Okay, just read them out. We've got Chanel making the magic happen in background. So just read me out who are our 3 presenters.
So it'll be Noelia who's on, Brenda Mestiza, Anais Martinez, and Carlos Henao. I can also write their names in the chat if it's easier.
No, I'll just ask Chanel if you need anything, you just unmute and tell us, or text me, or whatever you need.
What was the first name? Was it Noelia?
No, yeah, Noelia Martinez, Carlos Henao.
Oh, she's on. Okay, never mind. I didn't see her in the attendees, but she's a panelist already.
Yeah, she was with us at 7 and then hopefully took a little break if she needed to. I also just want to welcome, as we're getting everybody loaded in, Lyle. I'm sorry I didn't see you earlier. I don't know how long you've been hanging out. Actually, Chanel, can you promote Lyle?
Debbie, are you talking about Lyle Blackwood?
Yeah.
He's already there.
Is he on my panelist? Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Wayne. Okay, so Genesis, who's going to start? Who am I handing off to? And again, thanks, Rob. Thanks, Stacy.
I'll be sharing my screen.
Oh, okay.
So let's see if I can just get the share. Oh, cool. Great. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I apologize in advance. I've been having really bad Wi-Fi recently. But just want to say thank you all for staying on. It was definitely a long conversation and meeting, and we're just really thankful for you all for allowing us to be here in this space and for allowing our young people to be part of decision-making processes and spaces in our community. I want to start off by saying who I am. My name is Genesis. My pronouns are they, them. I am the Leadership and Enrichment Program Manager at Futures Ignite. We're a nonprofit organization that works with high school students at the Washington Heights Expeditionary Learning School, where we're essentially amplifying young people to really determine their college, career, and leadership futures. My work primarily is focusing on our leadership development work and through an environmental and social justice lens. And so today you all will hear some of our wonderful youth leaders that I've been able to work with for the past 3 years, talk a little bit about their initiative, the Clean Air Green Corridor, and essentially how they believe that this specific space of the Transportation Committee can kind of help them with their current short-term and long-term plans. I wanted to take the opportunity to also just ground us a little on this before the students take the space. And it's really about kind of telling a little bit of the history of our own community of Inwood and Washington Heights, and understanding that centuries of excluding people of color from decisions around land use has resulted in schools like ours to be built near highways and truck routes that have resulted in some of our young people having poorer air quality, higher asthma rates, and other adverse health outcomes. And to us, it's not surprising, given the fact that our school is impacted by substantial car and truck traffic brought by the Trans-Manhattan Expressway, the George Washington Bus Terminal, and the Harlem River Drive. And I think it's important to also note, right, that youth have traditionally been neglected in planning for the design of public spaces, despite the fact that teenagers are often the most frequent users of these areas, and making them important for their mental health and development of self-identity. And so by being actively engaged in the design of youth-friendly spaces, young people can not only advance the goals of environmental justice in our community, but also feel like they have an investment in our community. And allow them to also develop the sense of pride and ownership of these spaces. This is the type of involvement that provides opportunities for our young people to learn communication skills, decision-making skills, and develop co-working relationships with adults in our community that can help encourage future community involvement and build professional skills. So with that grounding, I'm going to pass it off to one of our youth speakers, Noelia. Take it away.
Thank you, Jen. So I'm currently a senior at Wheels. I was born and raised in Washington Heights, and I would like to begin off by thanking the chair of the Transportation Committee, Deborah Nabayan, for inviting myself and my peers to do this presentation. Today, we'll focus on our Clean Air Green Corridor initiative and talk about the importance of school streets and how we see the Transportation Committee, Community Board 12, helping us reach our vision. So before we get started, I'd like to go over our presentation agenda. First, we'll go over our long-term vision of a Clean Air Green Corridor on 182nd Street. So we recognize that WHEELS students have presented at this committee before, so we'll keep this introduction short. Second, we'll go over some of the research that youth leaders at WHEELS have collected during summers and after-school programs that make the case for protecting and creating more open space in our community. Third, we will talk about our goals for the spring and summer for 2023, and talk about how we are creating school streets through the DOT Open Streets program. Finally, we will end this presentation with how we see this committee supporting our goals. So I would like to start off by by giving you guys a brief definition of what the Clean Air Green Corridor is. So it's a youth-led initiative empowering Black and Brown youth from Washington Heights Exposition Learning School in reimagining how streetscapes of Washington Heights can transform into hubs for building community power, climate change resilience, and intergenerational outdoor and environmental education. This initiative was born out of an elective course in 2017 taught by WHEELS teacher Dr. Fox and Mr. Aspen. Students learn about the history and importance of green space, the neglect of Highbridge Park, and the system barriers to green spaces in our neighborhood.
And since then, WHEELS students and alumni are working towards transforming all of our 182nd Street from Amsterdam to Broadway into like a walkable, car-free green corridor without cars so that all students, teachers, and neighborhoods in our community can enjoy a safe, clean, and healthy community to live, learn, work, and play. And it's important to know and to highlight that there are 5 other schools, apartment buildings, small business, and street vendors on 182nd. So we understand the various stakeholders on 182nd and that this vision cannot be done if there isn't support and leadership from the whole community.
Personal. Which part?
And
Donna,
I'll pass it
Donna,
on to Brenda.
you're unmuted. Donna, por favor. Sorry, Anais, give me just 1 sec.
No, you're fine. You're all good.
Okay. Sigue. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I would just like to pass it on to Brenda.
Thank you, Anais. My name is Brenda. I am a junior at WHEELS, and I will be talking about some of the community science research that we have conducted over the summer and during our after-school programs. So this past summer, I was in a program collecting data about our parks and our water quality, and me and some 10 other WHEELS students worked with some college students from Columbia University biology program to conduct research in our local park, Highbridge Park and Sherman Creek. We learned about our biodiversity and water quality and collected data that allowed us to understand how healthy and safe these places are in our communities. On top, we did work on the park and we created community surveys and we asked people in the neighborhood how they felt about existing green spaces and its relations to mental health and why they chose to come to visit Highbridge Park. These are some results that we got from collecting our surveys. The blue graph shows all the locations where people were at and where they answered the surveys are in the green graph and showed how old some of the participants were. Some of the questions that we asked was how well does this park meet your needs? How happy do you feel right now in this park/street? How uncomfortable or stressed do you feel right now in the park, street? And some of the responses we got, some of them was the same, but some answered, having to walk our dogs to enjoy myself. I'm feeling very good coming here, and I don't feel comfortable at all.
So, hi, my name is Anais, and I'm a junior at WHEELS. We did multiple data collecting, one being taken in Sherman Creek. My project was based on water quality and biodiversity in Sherman Creek. We mostly collected our data in the water and try to measure how salty the water is by using special tools. And this is important because by keeping the species healthy, it can maintain diversity and around the ecosystem. Also, the healthier the animals, the better ecosystem is, and protect maintenance is very important because there's just any species that is not doing well, then this can impact everything else. So on the next slide, this is a chart that would help us understand of how biodiversity can be affected by water salinity. In this graph, we are measuring two things. The dependent variable is the biodiversity, and the independent is the water quality. Each point on the graph represents the total number of unique bird species we saw last year and the corresponding salinity at Sherman Creek. We created a line of best fit, as you can see, to find a potential relationship. And based on that line, there's a negative relationship between the two, which then means as water salinity increases, the number of bird species decreases. But if the salinity decreases, then the bird species increases. And I'll pass it on to Carlos.
Carlos, are you there? I think Carlos might be having some audio issues. Carlos? Hello?
All right, but would we still, okay, he still looks good in terms of he's not on mute and he's still here.
Okay. Carlos, when you're ready, start, but if not.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
We can hear you.
Yep.
My settings were messed up. I'm sorry. I started and I heard you say that you couldn't hear me. My bad.
You're good. Go for it.
Sorry, hold on. Can you still?
We can hear you. We don't have your video, but we can hear you. And the presentation's up.
But if you're talking, oh. Wait, we can't hear you, Carlos. But we can see you, which is great. No, we still can't hear you. It might be the headphones. It's all good.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh my God.
All good, all good.
Does he know we can hear him?
Yeah.
Thank you, Anais. Hello, everyone. My name is Carlos. I am a junior in Wheels. I will be discussing our current work in after school. This program is for 11th and 12th graders at, oh my God. This program is for 11th and 12th graders at Wheels and interested in environmental justice, science, and community engagement. GCL youth leaders have been trained on issues related to water, sanitation, extreme heat, and air quality. In groups, we are preparing workshops for 8th graders and 10th graders at our schools to train students on these concepts so they can become the next youth leaders for the Clean Air Green Corridor. Aside from GCL, for 11th and 12th graders, 9th and 10th graders at Wheels have the opportunity to join Stu Crew. There, Oh, sorry. There's the opportunity to join Stu Crew where they lead street cleanups on 182nd Street and learn about trees and the importance they bring to our community. Some of the members of the Stu Crew have identified litter problems on 182nd Street. Some of these problems are illegal dumping, littering on the street. There are a few trash cans along 182nd Street for the community. For the community members to dispose of their trash / litter. Along 182nd Street, there are empty tree pits and often used as a place to dispose of trash and litter. And lastly, there is also toxic waste that impacts people's health. For example, asthma and other diseases like that mostly affect us of color. And now I will pass it back to Noelia.
Thank you, Carlos. So since October 2022 to this day, Stu Crew has done 8 street cleanups. We have collected over 320 pounds of trash, and so far, with the help of NYC Cleanup Initiative grant that we have received from our council member, Carmen De La Rosa. So Stu Crew collects and maps out data every week using the app called ArcGIS Field Maps. As you can see in the maps on this slide, here are a few spots where trash has been mapped out. The point of mapping the litter along 182nd Street is for youth leaders to identify patterns of hotspots when it comes to litter and share this data with our community in order to take action. In addition to mapping out the litter hotspots on 182nd Street, we also weigh the trash bags we collect weekly using a luggage scale. This graph shows the progress we have made so far. We are continuing to collect this data and hope to identify a pattern by the end of the school year. And now I will pass it back to Carlos.
Thank you. Now we'll be talking about our short-term vision for the Clean Air Green Corridor, which is our school street / school plaza. So we want to take our school block from Amsterdam Avenue to Audubon Avenue and turn it into a space for education. These are some photos of some of our programming during our 2022 DOT Open Street. We led climate and environmental justice workshops for students and community members. We led a community visioning event where members of our community told us what they wanted to see on 182nd Street. We invited community organizations to share resources about their programs to parents and students. We even had a community science expo where students shared their research. We also know that our street can be a space for fun and relaxation. In some of the programming we have had set up games and places for students to sit and talk and enjoy the time with friends and family. And now I pass it back to Noelia.
Thank you, Carlos. Now I will talk about why our initiative for having a school street will be beneficial to the WEO students and teachers and the broader Washington Heights community. First, research has shown that green space makes us healthier and happier. A February 2020 study found that children and young people are happier when they feel connected to nature and outdoors. Spending time outdoors on a regular basis can have positive effects on youth development and mental health. Outdoor learning spaces on open and green spaces can help address some of the emotional and psychological trauma and the inequities that students, families, and teachers have experienced as a result of COVID-19 and the compounded impact of institutionalized racism. 2. Outdoors teachings offer the opportunity to expand educational goals with hands-on place-based learning activities. Establishing safe spaces around schools can transform schools' environments into healthier, more resilient school communities.
Third, a 2018 study created by Localize found that an alarming number of traffic crashes are affecting people and bikers near schools. We believe limiting traffic near schools can help create safer spaces for kids, parents, and teachers as they walk and bike near school. Finally, and lastly, we want more spaces as teenagers. We want more spaces as teenagers to just exist in. Teenagers make up roughly 1 million New Yorkers. There are not many public, open, and green spaces for us. Sometimes we are seen as a problem when we are in public spaces. We are often the victims of legal, spatial, and social restrictions that limit our ability to be ourselves in public spaces. Therefore, a school street on our school block can become another youth affirming and safe space.
Thank you so
And
much.
now,
You're passing it to me, Carlos?
yeah, I was gonna say, now I'll pass it on to John.
Thank you. Just wanted to give a huge shout out to our wonderful youth leaders, Anais, Noelia, Carlos, and Brenda for putting this presentation together. And I'm gonna wrap it up and answer any questions that folks may have about this initiative. But as we've mentioned earlier, I think the reason why our young people wanted to present to you all here tonight is because we need a little bit of help with our school street. So we recently applied for this cycle's Open Streets program. We applied last year for the temporary full closure, and we got it and had a successful program, and we want to continue to do our work this year. But we came across a couple of issues in last year. One mainly being a lot of the non-enforcement of our permit by some of the folks in our community when it comes to essentially respecting our permit when we have our school street up and running. And so we would love a committee resolution that one supports our school street for this cycle for both Wheels and IS 143. And in said resolution, we'd love for a request to be made for collaboration between DOT and the 34th precinct to enforce the temporary full street closure permit for this cycle. In the past, we've had communication with the 34th precinct, and a lot of times when we call for them to kind of enforce the fact that we have the permit, they say that there isn't enough funding in their budget to allocate for a tow truck. We're not asking for cars to be towed because we know that's expensive for folks, but we are asking for maybe for cars to be relocated to another spot. Because when we're having our programming, even with our street signage, even with constant communication with parents and other members of our community, the people who are parking aren't teachers or parents, it's folks from surrounding streets. And so we'd love some support in ensuring that we can continue this program. And we think a resolution could be a first step. Thank you. And I can take any questions that folks might have.
Thank you, Genesis. Thank you, Noelia, Anais, Brenda, Carlos. You did a great job. So remind me, the deadline for your open streets application for this year is April? Is that right for this cycle?
We submitted for the January 31st deadline because we want to start May 5th. So our application, we put that we want to close the street on Wednesdays and Fridays, starting on May 5th. So we would essentially, instead of piloting a Monday through Thursday schedule like we did last year, because we want to respect the fact that there is limited parking in our neighborhood, and we know that some teachers do drive, we want to just pilot this year a 2-day school street. And I saw someone in the chat ask if we're trying to expand.
Oh, wait, your audio cut out. Genesis, your audio cut out. Genesis, we can't hear you.
Can you still hear me? Oops, that's the Wi-Fi.
Sorry, it just patched out for just like 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the issue that we come across is that there's like non-DOE cars that are parking on the street, and then some vehicles that just get abandoned. And so we're trying to work with our community, essentially like the school community. And the compromise was, instead of closing it fully without parking, the whole week, we're going to dedicate 2 days. But the issue again that we come across is that teachers know not to park on those days, but then we have other folks that are not working in the school that then park or double park, and then we can't move them. We call the precinct, they don't do anything about it. And essentially the hours are 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Okay, so you have an application that presumably is being reviewed at this time for 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Wednesday and Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sorry, I did not know that you were going to have this ask. And so I'm going to say the following, and I'm open to different scenarios, but next month it was originally in a smaller version, DOT open, there was going to be somebody to come and talk to us about Open Streets program writ large, and I guess more like the next application cycle and what that program is. So a sort of more narrow definition. And then as I was talking to him, besides the fact that I didn't think we'd have time for it, even though it went well with your presentation, I realized that what I really would like to do, and what I've invited that person for, for March, is to have them present not just on Open Streets, but sort of all of the public space, the broader public space options, because there are other things that we know less about. Like we see plazas sometimes. We know about the Open Streets program, but like what other scenarios do they have? And then, so I guess my thought would be, do we consider sort of taking this up at that time? Or do we consider doing something now? We also have the issue that part of what you're saying here is like an NYPD facing issue. And the traffic enforcement is a little trickier as compared to sort of interacting with them on other precinct matters and crime matters. So, I mean, I guess I'd also sort of ask my committee if anybody has any input. But again, because what you're asking for, or what maybe the longer term vision, as I understood it, is like maybe longer term, it is sort of a more like a full plaza, or it's more like a, it is less temporary or something like that. And to sort of understand sort of what are the options, like as DOT sort of sketches the future in public space, because a lot of that stuff is being reconsidered.
Yeah, but so to what you're saying, the long-term vision is for it to eventually become a plaza. And I think our students have been inspired by a lot of what Yeshiva has done with their plaza. But we see that vision, we can start that by having an open street and by activating the space, which we have done and will continue to do. We're just asking for support in really helping us figure out like how can we get the 34th precinct to do their job. And so we're wondering if maybe having a resolution from this committee as a first step can help. And again, we're not asking for this to be every single day, Monday through Friday during the school year, but we're just asking for some support for this cycle because we didn't get any support from the precinct, even with the phone calls.
All right, well, okay, so that's a different issue. I'm not sure we need a resolution for that. I mean, okay, so I'm just thinking out loud. You guys have gotten your open street before. I'm not per se concerned, you know, no, I shouldn't say it that way. So you don't have to be as worried about, am I going to get it? Because you have gotten it before and we see no, you know, I can't imagine that they're going to turn you down. But you do have this outstanding issue about what makes it successful. I kind of feel like you also need to interact with public safety on that. I'm gonna, not to put our council member on the spot, but I guess, because I mean, I wouldn't mind if you guys like presented that also in our public safety. I'm also looking at my chair, Catherine Diaz, to see if she has any input about how we can best kind of roll this forward.
Yeah.
Jamila, I don't know if you want to pipe in, but just sort of, I'm not sure that this is a reso thing. I think that this is you're asking for assistance and that can look a few different ways. I mean, Catherine, what's your input?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have all the ins and outs about the program, but I think what I heard was is 2 days a week and it's only during school hours.
Yeah.
Okay. And does that fall under not just like the open streets activation, but does that fall under the same closed streets for like that some schools have had in the area?
Yeah, so we do
Play Street, I think you mean, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Sorry, Play Street.
Yeah.
So IS 143 Wheels, we do have a Play Street that allows teachers and DOE staff to still park. We've had conversations with them that we're applying for a school street through the Open Streets program that will require them not to park on this block those Wednesdays and Fridays, which they're cool about. The issue is the fact that when they don't park, other folks end up parking or double parking when we're trying to hold programming.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Like, I think, you know, and I don't know if it necessarily requires a reso at this point. I mean, I have a lot of questions that maybe we can take offline. Like, you know, how much time do you guys put up the schedule? What's the engagement like? Like, I know that block, one pre-COVID historically had a lot of like community events. Like I used to close that street all the time to do health fairs, for example, right? And I think across the district, and I know Council Member De La Rosa's folks aren't here, across the district, whenever folks used to do street activity permits, that always happens, right? Like cars get left behind. There's never been necessarily like that type of investment in terms of like the cars are just there and you got to kind of make do with them as you want to. So, you know, I think, and not to say that that needs to be the case, but I think it's just part of a larger thing that happens at the city, right? When people do have permits, that cars aren't necessarily always towed. And then, but yeah, I think like, for example, like putting up the schedule, a lot of the cars there do tend to be cab drivers. I'd be curious also to understand, you know, with the changes on 181st Street, how maybe that affects the cars moving or not moving on 182nd. So, you know, I think that there's a bunch of factors. I could see public safety having that conversation. I think, you know, offline, absolutely, like making sure that we can connect you to public safety committee, the 34th precinct, but also like maybe it's the office and Carmen's office and any of the other electeds connecting you perhaps to some of the tenants or residents, or like if it is a cab base that tends to park, which cab base. I know that in the past, particularly when that, let's say if you're going to close the street on a Saturday and it's a big day, then the 2 weeks before there would be some outreach of like, hey, do you usually park here? Here's a flyer. This is what's happening. I think it's just, it's yes, it is a school street, but also like, it's part of the fabric of the community, right? And it's a street that, unlike 181st now, people do tend to park. So it's a culture shift, and we'd be more than happy to like support in those efforts. But yeah, so I'll leave it there in case anybody else.
All right. I think I know where I want to go. Thank you for that, Kath. Sorry, Maria Luna, did you have something you wanted to say? Oop.
I mean, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm really excited about the presentation because this young group attended already a Youth and Education Committee meeting a few months ago doing the same thing. The only thing that I can tell them is that they have to be aware that when we are talking about in our community about closing street, no matter how much the beauty of the program and the project is all about, especially in 182nd Street, so close to 184th Street and the Amsterdam Avenue, the corridor, and 2 days a week. It was going to probably be, at the beginning of something that they expect to do, which is like having a plaza in that particular area. So, but my recommendation right now, they have problems with the police, with the 3-4. I mean, I work with very closely with the 3-3, but the community affairs officers at the 3-4, they should be in touch with them directly and explain, their concern. So maybe they can have an answer quickly about, what their goals are. And if they also, in another matter, if they have more, need for funding, the Columbia University and New York Presbyterian Hospital have a neighborhood fund that they can apply as soon as possible. They can go online and find the information, do the application, and they can get a little, resource for their plans because it's really merits attention by our community. But in the long run, it's just go to the 3-3, ask for a meeting with the community affairs officers and explain their issue, and I'm sure that they're going to have a quick response by then. I'm saying the 3-3. I'm talking about the 3-4, but anyway,
no, we knew. Yeah, we do.
Anyway,
we do.
Anyway, I think they met it because they already, came to our community board, youth services committee with Faith Florimon, and we heard a presentation, which, very excited. Anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Maria. I love the work that Wheels does. I mean, it truly is a distinct model. And I just want to say to all the students and to Genesis, yeah, this is just great work. It's meaningful. It is changing your space. I know that this is a little imposing to ask this when you guys were so patient tonight through a long first agenda item. I would like to continue this conversation next month, and if I promise you guys that you will be that the discussion will be first on the agenda, and if you can come in for that, because again, I'd like to hear what is the latest, greatest on the work of DOT as it relates to public spaces. What are the different flavors of things? What does a shared street mean? What does the school street, plus, pros, how do they think about, do they have anything to say about, enforcement, all of that, so that we can deal with both your immediate plan and the open streets application and the vision for this summer, but also, your larger work and your larger vision for the corridor, etc. I mean, it's not easy. I know you all know this, but with the busway there, you know, and because it sits, for better or for worse, you know, this one of the most transited, you know, half a square mile or whatever it is on the planet, it's hard. It's hard to get like the perfect answer, but you guys are pushing the thinking. And I'd like to just, again, have you guys at the table if we're hearing more about what are the public space options. The other thing that's happening is, you know, DOT at some point is going to come back and start working on Amsterdam between 181st and 188th. And some of this, that's going to become very relevant. And also there always are some efforts for the existing plazas around there and all that. So I want to really have more time with you all about, again, the broader vision, because there will be action there on DOT, on the edges, along there. And it'll need to be creative. So I don't mean to push you off, but if I can get a little more time with you guys in the room, like I'd like to have that conversation when we're not, you know, sort of at the end of a long meeting. Steve, did you want to?
Yeah, just on one particular issue, wearing my Parks Department hat, I'd like to get a list of the addresses of the empty tree pits where they would like to have trees planted.
Oh, thank you.
For sure. We've done a walkthrough with parks last year, and we identified places where 20 additional trees can actually go on 182nd Street, which includes also the missing tree pits. So I can definitely share that information with you.
All right, let me know who from Parks you met with.
Yeah, his name starts with an N, but I'll find it.
Could it be Nave?
Yes, exactly that person.
Nave Strauss?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay.
All right, and then we'll get you connected. Well, I know you have the connections, but if you need anything, you know, hit up myself or Catherine or the office about, like, if you want to talk to public safety as a committee, or if you just want to follow up, you know, just for better different contacts and going at it a different direction, let us know.
Yeah, I think it'd be great. And maybe we can talk offline about this, Debbie, to maybe like facilitate that introduction. Because I have a community affairs person's number. I've been to his office, we've spoken.
Yeah.
And it's the issue that they keep telling us is that there's no funding for them to be able to enforce. And
right, but maybe there's some other approaches, because it is anything with traffic enforcement is tricky. You know, we have it with a lot of things on our streets where, like, if we could just get a little more enforcement, and you know, I don't really know what to say about that. But
I was gonna ask, I know we're at time. I was gonna ask real quick, do you guys have a barricade though for the Amsterdam when you do close?
Yeah, we have barricades that DOT gave us, and then we've also installed the open streets planters that kind of stay year round to help with the barricades. Yeah, and to, I think you mentioned, Catherine, you asked us like what our outreach looks like. Like, we put up the signs like 2 weeks or a week in advance, and again, like, our school community like knows, and I think we're grateful with the fact that a lot of our students like live on 182nd Street and in the surrounding buildings and blocks. I think for us is trying to figure out, like, what do we do about those abandoned cars that are technically like on the street, that don't belong to people in the neighborhood, and then also who are also still violating the DOE like teacher parking permit as well.
So, and actually, because I do want to sort of wrap up, and this isn't really the forum for sort of this kind of back and forth, but also just touching base with, and again, keeping Kathy on CC, but the district manager, you know, the thing that the district manager can be really helpful is the interagency stuff. So the abandoned cart sometimes touches upon both. I mean, like, I feel like two different, you know, NYPD and like sanitation, or, you know, and then there's often sometimes like finger pointing, it's yours, it's not, whatever. But he can be helpful. He's gotten it done before. It sometimes takes a while, but he can help coordinate that because he has an interagency meeting that he leads every month called District Services Cabinet. And Catherine can, you know, kind of make sure that the connections are being made. So let's take the rest of that offline. And again, thank you for your patience tonight and hanging in with us. And I love your work, and it's exciting, and it just makes me happy to hear what you guys are thinking and hearing your vision, and the impact you're already having on our community. I'm just going to say the committee, because again, it's been a long night, so I don't really, you know, I'm going to kick a lot of things till March. Just so people know, escalators at 181st Street have been officially postponed till March 2023 as opposed to February. If I had to guess, I think it's going to go to the bitter end of March, but we can always hope for better. And I feel like I had one more update I wanted to give. But if you, oh, and actually, Lyle, while we still have you, if we could get if I could get an update so that I have it for the committee, because it does a little bit get on like the parking mayhem, and it is mayhem out there, that this long-term project that takes up the entire south side of the block of 181st, on the Target, you know, St. Nicholas, going west, it goes 180th to 181st, 182nd on Broadway, and then one more whole block. Like, I can't remember whose it is, but we'd really like to know when, because it doesn't, I guess that stuff is happening on the overnight, but nothing ever changes. And it takes a lot of parking spots that are supposed to be so people can do the things on 181st Street that they're trying to do. But it's also creating a lot of pressure on the surrounding blocks. And I just don't know why nothing seems to make progress there. It feels like years. I don't know if that's DEP or who all stuff that is, but it's like, you know, it's a problem, you know. And then again, as I always say, the precinct takes like a good 70 spots. So like we end up with just too much pressure on a 180th, 181st, and 182nd. So, you know, if you could look into that, let's talk about that. So I have that for the next meeting as well.
Just to verify, is that in regards to the core, like the busway, or I just want to clarify as far as what the information for.
Yeah, I mean, it's a giant infrastructure something. I just don't know whose it is. And it's 181st Street between Wadsworth and St. Nick. It is Broadway from 181 going to 182nd on the east side of the avenue. It is the north side of 181st between Broadway and Wadsworth, maybe, but there's like sort of three big spots, and it's a lot of roadbed. And again, that's supposed to be metered parking for people on the busway, for businesses on the busway and everything. And like, again, when we're trying to talk about 182nd Street corridor, it's not helping things, because, you know, it's like the lots are all full, you know, many of us can't afford those, you know, like people are, they're just dumping cars and double park, and things are getting blocked. And it just would be nice to know when they're going to be out of those streets, because it has been years. With that, I would like to adjourn for the evening, and everybody can follow up with me as they will. Do I have a motion to do so?
I move we adjourn. And I think everyone was great tonight. And I too was very impressed with the students and their work.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all of you. Leo Jimenez, as always, was both taking notes and supporting the Q&A and the chat and all of that. And thank you for everybody's participation this evening. Have a good month. I'll see you in March.
Happy Valentine's Day.